This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Indian refiners are awaiting government directions on whether to continue buying Russian oil after the United States decided to impose fresh 25% tariffs on Indian goods over New Delhi's energy ties with Russia, 4 industry sources said. The new duties, aimed at penalizing India for its Russian oil imports, come on top of existing tariffs Washington has levied to fix its trade deficit with the South Asian nation. India said the latest U.S. action is unfair, unjustified and unreasonable. So far, we have not been told anything by the government, so we will not stop Russian oil imports, said an official from a private refining company.
Oil prices rose 1% on Thursday, pausing a 5-day losing streak, on signs of steady demand in the U.S., the world's biggest oil user, though uncertainty about the macroeconomic impacts of U.S. tariffs limited gains. Brent crude futures rose 62 cents, or 0.9%, to $67.51 a barrel by 0342 GMT, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $65.03 a barrel, up 68 cents, or 1.1%. Both benchmarks slid about 1% to their lowest in 8 weeks on Wednesday after U.S. President Donald Trump's remarks about progress in talks with Moscow.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday imposed an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods, citing New Delhi's continued imports of Russian oil in a move that sharply escalated tensions between the two nations after trade talks reached a deadlock. The new import tax, effective 21 days after August 7, will raise duties on some Indian exports to as high as 50%, among the highest levied on any U.S. trading partner. Trump's executive order imposing the extra tariff did not mention China, which also imports Russian oil, but later said he could announce similar further tariffs on Chinese goods.
China imported 47.20 million tons of crude oil in July, down 5.4% from 49.89 million tons in the previous month, according to data from China's General Administration of Customs. Imports of oil products rose 19.2% to 4.03 million tons, while exports of oil products flat at 5.34 million tons. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Rare earth exports from China slumped 23% in July after hitting a record a month earlier, customs data showed on Thursday. Although the preliminary data is too incomplete to draw firm conclusions about Beijing's commitment to speed up shipments. The world's largest producer of rare earths exported 5,994.3 metric tons in July, down 23% from June, when exports hit the highest level since at least 2014, data from the General Administration of Customs showed. China's rare earth exports are being closely scrutinized after Beijing agreed to a series of deals with the United States and Europe to increase shipments and ease the export licensing system imposed in April in retaliation for U.S. tariffs.
Gold rose on Thursday, supported by renewed safe haven demand after U.S. President Donald Trump slapped an additional 25% tariff on Indian imports, escalating trade frictions. Spot gold was up 0.4% at $3,380.76 per ounce as of 0247 GMT. U.S. gold futures gained 0.3% to $3,443.30. Trump has been dishing up fresh tariff threats, which is keeping gold in the frame as a defensive play for investors, Tim Waterer, chief market analyst at KCM Trade, said.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
China's soybean imports rose to the highest ever for the month of July, a Reuters calculation of customs data showed on Thursday, driven by strong Brazilian exports and ongoing China-US trade uncertainties that have raised supply concerns. The world's largest soybean consumer brought in 11.67 million metric tons in July, data from the General Administration of Customs showed, up 18.5% from 9.85 million tons a year earlier, and above analysts' expectations of 10.48 million tons. This suggests the market is preparing for potential uncertainties arising from China-US Trade tensions, said Rosa Wang, an analyst at Shanghai-based agro consultancy JCI, who expects imports to remain above 10 million tons in August and September.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.